is calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Hey there, everybody. It's Mark D'Antonio here on Sky Tour Radio tonight, Sunday, and it's the 5th of January. It's our first show of the new year, and I believe Daryl is with me. Hello, Daryl.
Hello, Mark. Hello, Bill.
Yeah.
And hey, looks like Amanda just joined.
Did I make it in time?
Hey, you just made it. We just...
Oh.
Amanda was actually suffering through some very bad winter weather and driving, and I only had just found out about it now as we were about to go on the air. So I was like, oh, no. So we were looking to, fill in where we could because we know she really drives the show. So now that she's here, I can turn it over to Amanda, and she will take it for the next 2 hours. Right, Amanda? We can do that, yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Daryl. How are you?
I'm good. You? I'm glad you made it home okay.
Thank you. It was treacherous out there, but we got my
bet.
mom home safe and sound.
Yay,
Oh.
Mom. Yay,
Yes.
Dad.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the climate, we're going to talk about climate tonight, actually, for a little bit of time later on in the show. But I do want to just make a few announcements up front for those who haven't been here before. For those that have, I'll move through it quickly. I do want to mention to you that Sky Tour Radio is actually a radio broadcast that couples with Sky Tour Livestream. Sky Tour Livestream is found on YouTube. It's a YouTube channel. Feel free to join. We'd love to have you join. Amanda and Daryl are co-hosts on that as well. And we have moved up to several thousand subscribers. We're pretty happy. And what it is a clear night journey. And clear nights only because we're using live telescopes. And it's a foray into the wonders of the deep sky. You know, people like Bill New York Skywatcher, he does meteor showers. P&K Space Imaging, those are Paul and Keith. They do this absolutely stupendously wonderful views of the moon. So subscribe to both of those channels, too, if you can. All three of us are found on astroimaginglive.com if you don't want to do a Facebook thing. But if you want to do, and you have a Facebook account and you are on Facebook, you can find all the Sky Tour live stream photos, including right up to the minute photos that we took just a couple weeks ago at the Facebook Sky Tour live stream site. You can just look that up, search for it, join, and have a ball. We love to view these glittering jewel boxes of star clusters, nebulae, remnants of dead and dying stars. Oh my gosh, we go on and on and on. Amanda has a great time because she didn't know any astronomy starting out with Sky Tour Radio. And she has come such a long way that I bet you she could actually teach a astronomy course.
Well, let's not go that far.
Well, they didn't say who you're teaching it to, but, you could probably hold your own with high school kids and teach them.
Ooh, no.
No. I don't know. Daryl, what do you think?
Oh, I think she could more than hold her own against the average high school kid nowadays.
I think so.
They're too busy studying other things.
Yes, like their phone and Instagram. It's okay. And we do have an Instagram account. Sky Tour does have an Instagram account as well as an email. If you want to catch us, if you want to ask Daryl or Amanda or I any questions, you can reach us at skytourradio@kgraradio.com. Couldn't be simpler. skytourradio@kgraradio.com. Tonight, we're going to have an interesting show. Now, the show, here's what happened tonight. I started writing the show like several days ago, putting down some ideas. And I scribbled them all out a couple hours ago because there have been some interesting developments that I really just wanted to talk about. So we're going to kind of go off the cuff a little bit, but I hope that there'll be some cohesiveness. And that's, Daryl didn't know we were doing this. Amanda didn't know this is what I was going to do. So hopefully they'll forgive me for doing it this way without any knowledge or foresight, in there. I didn't give them any knowledge or forewarning, I should say.
I want a raise.
And he wants, 00 is still zero, Daryl. I mean, that, we're all getting that, But you're more than worth that, actually, and you're worth far more. You're worth real dollars, but someday.
My mom thought I was cute.
That's funny. Yeah. And as you folks might know, Daryl has a really good sense of humor. Amanda has a good sense of humor. Daryl is an astronomer himself. He does a lot of work with telescopes. He is more of the, how do I say it, Daryl? You're the traditional astronomer in that you like to put a telescope together. You'll build the telescope, and then you'll actually, look through your telescope and, well, who doesn't, right? But the thing about you that I think is the most important thing is you are absolutely ferocious about making sure that you have good optics. Am I wrong with that?
You're right, I guess. You shaded me last week about not having broken out that Celestron 9.25 yet.
Yeah.
My eyes are shot. I'm getting old. My health is failing. I do more naked eye and binoculars than anything nowadays.
Okay.
And I go out and I study the sky every clear night, several times a night, and in the morning, weather permitting.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That is what makes actually is people that do those types of things like you do. You just on a very habitual basis. You'll go out at night. You'll go out, like you say, several times a night or in the early morning. It's guys like you that actually find things like comets. You don't have to be scanning the sky with a high-powered telescope to find a comet. Many of the comets are found what we call serendipitously. They're an accidental discovery. It's like, wow, what is that fuzzy thing? Holy cow, it's nothing that they know. It must be a comet, that kind of thing. And I came close to finding one once. I found it independently of, the official announcements, but it was actually already known. It was just too faint. So they already knew about it, and I had just rediscovered something that was already there. I was so excited, though, because I felt that rush of discovery. That, like, I found something. Wow, And then, of course...
Did you call it Comet Mark by chance?
No, I wasn't. I don't have an ego like that, so I didn't, but I was actually just excited to find a comet. I didn't know what to call it. If it was my comet and I did find it, maybe they would assign my name to it if I, asked them to do that. But as it turned out, it was already known. It didn't even have a name yet. It was actually just had numbers. It was just an association name that was put to it.
Oh, surely there was a moment, you saw this thing and, wow, I found a comet. What if they named it Comet Mark?
Yeah. I knew enough about astronomy back then to know that I didn't have that possibility, though. It might have been, D'Antonio / 1990 EP or something like that, It could have been that. And I would have been happy with that. But it didn't have to be my name at all. I just was really excited about the discovery. So, and discovery is kind of what tonight's show is about. Discovering a comet, discovering some new planets in the universe. All these things are really important. And honestly, the biggest question, and Amanda knows this, you know this, Daryl, is the question of whether we're alone in the universe. And the problem that arises is that we don't know if complex life like us, complex, that is multicellular, with special cells that grow to have a specific purpose in an organism, whether those types of life forms actually exist. We know that we do. We know that we have millions upon millions of species on this planet that are all diverse, but we don't know whether they exist elsewhere. And the problem has been that, there's so many factors we can't possibly predict. All right. And one of those factors that we've accounted for at times, but not at other times, has been the tilt of our planet. We're at a tilt angle to the rest of the solar system in that regard. In other words, for the flat plane of the solar system, our Earth is not sitting up and down, straight up and down. It is tilted at an angle of about 23 degrees or so.
23.4 degrees.
Well, I wasn't gonna, belabor with a decimal.
Well,
Yes, you're absolutely right.
I used to round it off to 23 and a half, but
Yeah, it's 23.4 degrees. Yeah, Amanda?
Does that have anything to do with today's perihelion day?
No. I mean, that angle that we're at is an angle that I'd love to say is constant, but it does vary over time through a hold on. What am I saying? Sorry. It varies over time due to the way the Earth orbits the sun, and the Earth wobbles on its axis, so the North Pole is not always in the same place. Okay, but the perihelion day doesn't really have anything to do with a planetary tilt, but finding complex life might, and that's what this study was about that I was talking about. Now,
can I jump in for just a second per what Amanda said?
I thought you were gonna. I thought you wanted to bring in something. That's why I paused before. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Well, Amanda, today was also the morning of the latest sunrise of the year. That happened today, and that is because partially involved with Earth's tilt on its axis. From today on, not only are the days getting longer, but we have, since before the solstice, we've been seeing sunsets happening later, but the shortest daylight actually happened on the day of the solstice. That's what the solstice is. But after today, the sun will start rising earlier also. And we will see more and more daylight in the morning and the evening now, building up to summer.
Exactly.
So yay. There's something to look forward to for you.
More sunlight is always good. People, it's sort of it's a health thing, right? I mean, more sunlight gives people a lot more encouragement to be outside. It makes them be able to breathe in the fresh air. And it gives people, daylight is something that's very, very exciting to most of humanity.
Oh, yeah.
Nighttime has always been characteristically the time when we hide from predators, evolved through evolution. And that's something that we've kind of evolved out of our conscious world, but not out of our subconscious, not out of our primal world. We're still, if we walk down a dark alley at night, we'll look behind us, even if we know there's probably nobody there, but we still look behind us. We got to be, we're being careful. And that care is something that allowed us to survive. So we don't want to get rid of all of it, But going back to the axial tilt, this study I was talking about, it discovered that pretty much 87% of all the exoplanets that are Earth-like are probably in systems where the stars are more than one. In other words, a binary star system. Okay, we recognize Alpha Centauri as a trinary star system. We'll talk about that in a second. But many, about 50% of all stars will have a binary companion of some kind. And it turns out that in such systems, the axial tilt of any such planets in those systems will make a huge difference in the equation of complex life. That is something that this study brought forward. And when I was reading part of the study, it's in the Astrophysical Journal, and it's entitled, and this is a name, don't remember, the name does not matter, okay? But listen to the way it's named. The Obliquity Evolution of Circumstellar Planets in Sun-like Stellar Binaries. You got all that? Okay, what does it mean? It just means how the planet's tilt affects the development of life. That's really what they're saying there. Obliquity is the tilt. In the evolution of circumstellar planets, planets that are circling their sun, and that are, of course, in binary systems. So that's really kind of a cool thing. And this is the fascination of this study wasn't lost on me, because to me, I look at every planet in our solar system, and I look at how the axial tilts on these very different planets, okay, had major impact on their evolution. Now, I think it was a couple shows ago, Daryl, you mentioned, I think that Mars had an axial tilt that has varied over the millions of years. Remember that?
I do. And,
Yeah.
And by the way, Mars's length of daytime is almost the same as Earth's.
That's right. And its axial tilt is almost the same as Earth's.
Exactly.
At the moment. But it wasn't always like that. There's evidence to indicate that some of the regions near the poles of Mars may have been warmer at one point than we see now. And there's evidence to indicate that where we see the equator of Mars, that there's some type of indications that maybe that was a much colder area at one point or at a higher latitude. So could it be then that Mars had flipped on its axis, not flipped over, of course, because that's baloney, okay, but had moved in a very dramatic way in its axis? And the answer is they think yes. They think that Mars' drastic changes to its axial tilt in our solar system might have actually been part of the reason that the atmosphere had been depleted. And it wasn't because it was whipped off or anything like that. It was because as Mars' axis tilted, there were changes to its magnetic field at the time, which it no longer has. It has just magnetic residual. And that was affecting the atmosphere because of the fact that now the solar energy, the radiation, the ultraviolet especially, could reach the atmosphere and start ripping apart water molecules that might have been in the atmosphere. It was actually pretty devastating to the planet long term. Yet here is Earth it just spins like a top. And so our North Pole precesses around in a little circle over 26,000 years. And as it does so, we have remained relatively stable as we spin like a top around the sun for billions of years.
Have we, though? I seem to remember hearing that Antarctica was like subtropical or tropical at one point.
Well, because of plate tectonics, yes.
Okay,
so remember there was Pangea at one point on the planet. And that was several 100 million years ago, or we had Gondwanaland, we had Pangea, we had Rodinia, and Pangea was last. And then they broke up because of plate tectonics, and that drift brought Antarctica to the southern latitudes as well. And what I find interesting is the axial tilt of our planet seems to have been around way back then too. So what caused it? Now, there are some theories, and this is sort of an aside to our topics tonight, but there's some theories, one of which is the impactor that struck the Earth that formed the moon. If you believe that the moon was ripped out of the Earth during a collision with a Mars-sized object, that's the prevailing theory right now. And there's no reason to say that's not true because we can't prove it really one way or the other. We just look at the composition of rocks and say, well, the moon looks like the Earth in composition, and that's actually a problem. We should expect the moon to be composed of what the impactor was made of and then what the Earth was made of. But so far, we've only found rocks that we would expect to come from an ancient Earth. So that's always been a problem for me. But it's the prevailing theory, and I don't dismiss it because that's not my specialty. And I would never wager anything but a guess, So anyway, there's a lot to that. There's the capture theory and so forth. I don't believe it's a capture. I think it was actually formed here, just like they say it was, but I'm not sure how. But the impact might have actually caused the Earth's axis to shift over and tilt like that. It might have been that we were spinning straight up and down, so to speak, and maybe that changed in the impact.
We have a few questions coming in about the tilt.
Okay.
First off, Charles wants to know what is the length of the tilt cycle. I assume he's meaning for Earth.
The tilt cycle on Earth, I mean, we stay at this 23.4 degrees that we're staying at. Now, we've deviated slightly over the millennia, or I should say over the eons, but the cycle that we talk about here, the spinning like a top cycle, that doesn't change the axial tilt. It just changes the relative direction it's pointing, so to speak. Okay, so when we talk about the tilt, we're talking about the fact that we have a 23.4 degree tilt, as Daryl said. And over time, the Earth is wobbling. That North Pole, if you were to draw a line straight out of the North Pole up into space, you can imagine how that would actually draw out a little circle as the North Pole precesses like that wobbling top. Now, when tops wobble, they're running out of energy. That's not why the Earth is wobbling. It's wobbling because of some initial impact, followed by the existence and the creation of oceans. Once the oceans are here, and once the moon started tugging on the water and created this gravitationally induced bulge on the planet, as well as the sun on the other side pulling and causing the same thing, just less magnitude, then that caused issues that actually caused the precession to kick into this cycle over 26,000 years. And for me, I think that 26,000 year cycle is something that we cannot do without. We couldn't. I don't want to ever see us try to engineer that away. I saw an engineering paper by a guy the other day who said that we can actually grab the sun and move it, and in so doing, we could move the entire solar system away from a potential supernova danger from some stars. And my first thought was, we can't predict where the stars are actually going to be exactly, and we know that all the stars in our nearby neighborhood will never go supernova. So we're in no danger from a supernova. So the question was, I think it was just a thought problem on his part. But the problem we have here is that our axial tilt takes place over 26,000 years, and the only thing that changes for us is where north is. We have a North Star right now. I think the North Star was like, what was it, 0.8 degrees from less than a degree from the North Pole exactly, right, right, Daryl?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's like 0.8.
I mean, it's the best we got right now. It's a lot better now than it's been in the past.
That's correct. In fact, there were stars, and the North Pole used to be at places where there were no exact stars. I mean, there were stars. There were always stars out in the view if you could see them, but visual stars to the eye. The North Star is one of those. People don't realize that it's really not right on the pole. People think the North Star is right at the very North Pole. It's not, And if you're setting up a very big fancy telescope in an observatory like we do, you can't depend on just pointing at the North Star. You want this telescope to be accurately pointing at anything you tell it to point to anywhere in the sky. And to do that, you need to make sure that it's lined up exactly with that North Pole, the actual North Pole, not a star. So it's interesting, and I don't know, Amanda, if we got any other questions we can take.
We do. Before the break?
Well, go for it.
We'll try. Carol wants to know, what does the tilt do to us perspective-wise?
May I address that?
Oh, please do.
Okay, Carol, that 23.4, let's just call it 23.5 degree axial tilt. That's what you see when you look at most globes of the Earth. That base is built so it tilts, and that's 23.5 degree tilt. One thing that does is that causes seasons. When the northern tilt, when the tilt to the north is pointing toward the sun, it's summer here. When our tilt is pointing away from the sun, that defines winter. Also, the ellipticity of Earth's orbit is a factor.
It is,
beyond that, you've heard of the tropics before, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Well, those are spaced 23.5 degrees to either side of Earth's equator. Those, in effect, are the northern and southern limits of how far the sun moves in the sky. In other words, how far north or south you can be from the equator and see the sun ever appear straight overhead. If you're north or south of the tropics, you will never see the sun straight overhead. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah, very good, Daryl. Thank you. And one last thing I can add to that is, where you say perspective-wise, what it means is that if we didn't have that axial tilt and we were up and down and not at that 23.4 degrees, our southern horizon would actually be such that we could see what's currently below our horizon would be up above our horizon. And we actually would end up being able to see objects in the southern sky that we can't currently see. For instance, we'd be able to see Alpha Centauri if we had an axial tilt that was 90 degrees. Okay, it's vertical. We'd be able to see Alpha Centauri, and it wouldn't really be a big deal to us. Well, we can't from the north because of the fact that it's below our southern horizon. So as high as Centaurus gets, and a little bit of it does come up above the horizon here in Connecticut, Alpha Centauri doesn't come up high enough. So we can't see it. But if our axial tilt was a little bit like vertical, then Alpha Centauri would be visible to us.
And the plane of the ecliptic would also be coincident with the celestial equator. Maybe we could talk about that after the break.
All right. Well, folks, Daryl and Amanda and I will be right back after this break. This is Sky Tour Radio on KGRARadio.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with, you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio here on KGRARadio.com. And you are all the most amazing audience on earth, I can tell you that. Now before the break, Daryl said that there was some more he wanted to add to Carol's question. I think it was. And if you wanted to do that, Daryl, you could do that now.
Okay, Carol, I alluded to this just a bit before the break. Because of that 23.5 degree tilt, well, when the sun is as far north in the sky as we see it from Earth, it is directly over the Tropic of Cancer. when the sun is as far south as it will go in our sky, winter as seen from here in the northern hemisphere, the sun is directly over the Tropic of Capricorn in the southern sky. That's what the tropics mean when you see those two lines on either side of the equator when you look at a map or a globe. And as I mentioned before, when you look at that skinny figure 8 out in the Pacific Ocean, it's called the analemma. That defines the sun's motion in the sky over the course of the year. And the northern end of that figure 8 touches the Tropic of Cancer, and the southern end of the figure 8 touches the Tropic of Capricorn. And that defines the solstices when the sun reaches those two limits. The other part of this, because of that 23.5-degree axial tilt, the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, strictly speaking, or you could also say that's the plane that we see the sun move across the sky over the course of a year, is called the plane of the ecliptic. This is also the plane that the planets more or less run along over the course of the year. They do vary somewhat. We're not all in exactly the same plane. But strictly speaking, that's the definition of Earth's orbit around the sun, or conversely, how we see the sun move across the sky. If the Earth was not tilted 23.5 degrees, Earth's equator projected out into space, that is the so-called celestial equator, would be the same as the ecliptic plane. But because we are tilted, the Earth's orbit around the sky, the Earth's orbit around the sun, is defined by that ecliptic plane, and it is also tilted 23.5 degrees to our equator. Half the time the sun is north of the equator, half the time the sun is south of the equator. And the planets move north and south of the celestial equator also. That's it.
That's why having an observational astronomer as part of SkyTour Radio is the best possible thing on Earth, because Daryl summed it up in a nutshell. It was actually very well spoken, Daryl. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that was really well said.
I hope that answered your question, Carol.
I think you answered her question and then some. I mean, I don't think she will have any questions for the rest of the show because you answered them all.
Okay.
That's pretty good. Amanda, what else we got out there for questions before we move into this?
We had a question from Ronald. He wants to know if there's going to be a pole shift and what will he notice when it happens.
That's a really good question, Ronald. Will there be a pole shift? Well, first of all, let's define what a pole shift is. It's not an actual, flip-flopping of the whole Earth. The Earth doesn't fall over and that kind of thing. That's not a pole shift. We're talking about something that in actual terms, if you want to call it what it is, it's called geomagnetic reversal. Say geomagnetic reversal. That's where the north and south poles magnetically switch around. And as soon as the thoughts of this and the evidence that it's happened before, and it has many, many, many times in history, you can look at the rock strata at the mid-Atlantic spreading ridge where the hot iron infused magma comes out into forms lava that forms the ocean floor there. As it spreads away from the mid-Atlantic spreading ridge, as that magma cools, or that lava cools, the crystals of iron align with the magnetic field that are in there. And so reading the cores, that is the rock sample cores that they're taken from that area, we can go back and look at how many times this has happened before. And come to find out, it doesn't happen on a regular basis. It happens every so often. And there are periods, long periods, where it never happens, and then periods where it happens rapidly, multiple times. And when I say it happens rapidly, it doesn't mean that you can go to work today and come home and now you're at the South Pole. That's not what I mean. It takes thousands of years for these pole shifts to occur. But in the popular YouTube internet environment, a lot of doomsayers were getting out there saying, pole shift is coming. Oh no, planes will fall out of the sky. GPS satellites will never work anymore. Everything will fail. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. And of course they said, and massive extinctions will ensue. Yeah, no. Let's be honest. It's happened so many times here on the Earth that the animals shrug it off. They don't even realize it's happening because it takes place over such a long time that they habituate to it. They learn to, they grow with it. They learn, and they no longer, they're not affected by it. There's no die-offs from pole shift, geomagnetic reversal, So we won't notice anything when it happens, to be honest. In fact, we could be in the middle of one now. Have you noticed in the news that the North Magnetic Pole has been moving? It's actually moving fairly quickly. It's moving I forget how many miles a year they say the actual North Magnetic Pole is moving. But this actually, the reason it's moving has to do with something way down in the core of the Earth. Something that's got just about 4,000 miles from everybody on Earth. It's down in the core, and as the inner core of the Earth, which is solid, iron and nickel, as that core is being surrounded by molten material in the outer core, that molten material rubbing against that inner core, if you think of it that way, creates electricity. And that electricity, in turn, creates a magnetic field. That's where planets get their magnetic field. It's called the dynamo, and we call it the Earth dynamo. And in the case of the Earth dynamo, our magnetic field is something that is subject to change over the eons. And so the magnetic field we have now is not the magnetic field we have then at the beginning. It's different. We've had this geomagnetic reversal. We used to be in the quote-unquote southern hemisphere at one point when the reversal occurred, and then we aren't. And for when people predict, it's coming, there's no way for them to even know that it's coming. There's nothing to indicate that. The North Pole has been shifting very gently over many years, and it may continue to, or it may stop. Who knows? We don't know if pole shift, this geomagnetic reversal, is something that's going to, happen over the next 1,000 years, or if it's going to, keep drifting and drifting and then stop somewhere over Greenland maybe, and then head back the other way again. We don't know, because we don't have any data to show this. We don't have that. What we do know is that every bit of the fossil evidence shows that it takes a long time for it to happen. So for Ronald out there, who's ERRT radio, I just want to assure you that you don't have to sell your house and that wonderful town you live in, that little postage stamp town that's so picturesque. You don't have to sell your house and move and find a safe space, because you're going to be able to live there for a long, long time to come. So nothing wrong, no harm, no foul. Great question. And I think that's it for the questions, yeah?
So far.
Okay. So next up, what I want to mention is we talked about the planetary tilt and how it will affect development of life long term. And the way planets orbit in a binary system is also important. But the most important part of the study is that the study concludes that they may be out there. Now, here's what's interesting about this. This is an article in the Astrophysical Journal, prestigious journal, and it's talking about the evolution of complex life and how it is probably very possible. Isn't that something interesting? Because this is a recognized change in academia. We used to say there's no other life out there. And then you had to say, well, there's life, but certainly not complex or intelligent life. And now the mantra is, well, we think complex life can exist. Do you see what's happening? Little by little, science is being dragged kicking and screaming because of its own results down the path to say, guess what, folks? We may not be alone. And to every one of us who kind of have had experiences that we can't explain, we're going to sit there and look at each other and go, well, duh. Yeah. Every single person on this planet almost, or say in the U.S. anyway, and Canada, because Amanda lives there and she feels this way.
Yay, Canada.
Exactly. Yay, Canada. Every single person that lives in most of the civilized countries, actually, who think about this, probably believe that they're not alone in the universe. And there's a good reason for that, because there's enough evidence to indicate that we probably aren't alone in the universe. And if anyone wants to, and this is a shameless plug, sorry. If anyone wants to read about that, they can go to Amazon and order any one of 3 different types of the populated universe. And it's a book I wrote about that very question, extraterrestrial life, the finding of it, how we find it, interesting planets. And it talks about the possibilities and how the Earth and the civilization here on this planet will develop in the future to get off this planet and move on out into the universe. It's a study of extraterrestrial life and exoplanets. So hopefully you like it. It's on Amazon. It's a ebook. It's a small format book, and it's also a big 8x10 full color book.
That was a shameless plug.
Yeah, I know it was, and I'm still shaming myself. Yeah. Well, look, you know what? I think that's okay. I think it's all right because I get the information out there. If I told you how much I made on these books, you'd laugh and say, "Why do you even waste your breath?" Okay, it's about getting the information out there, is what it is.
Oh yeah.
I literally make a few cents on the big book, believe it or not. A few cents, no lie. So it's not about the money. It's about the information. So anyway, so really now, when we think about the Earth and the development of life here, there's an awful lot of questions we have. And, hopefully Sky Tour Radio and Daryl and Amanda and I can help you figure out some of the answers. Now, one of the answers that we came up with, not us, but astronomers, is that there's more than one planet in the Alpha Centauri star system. Now, Alpha Centauri is, we call the components, Alpha Centauri A, capital A, and Alpha Centauri B, capital B. These are the stars, all right? They're a binary system. Alpha Centauri B orbits Alpha Centauri A from a distance of about Uranus in our solar system. So it's out there, a few tens of astronomical units, okay, from the star. That's actually pretty close for a binary system. 2 big stars, the roughly the same size as the sun and same type, roughly. Now, Alpha Centauri A is kind of like the sun, and Alpha Centauri B is a little bit different. However, they found a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri B. So this is what's cool now. Now the problem is, you're hearing it's an Earth-sized planet, an Earth mass basically planet, and it is very exciting, I know, but that's where the similarity ends, because the planet is closer to the star than Mercury is to our sun. So it's undoubtedly scorched and barren, to be honest. So it's not. What's interesting about this find is that we could find it. Finding an Earth-sized planet like this has really been a grail, a holy grail for exoplanet researchers, because if we can find small mass, low mass planets like this, the same techniques apply, and we can find them elsewhere, it really represents a refinement. It's not the first time it's happened, but it represents a refinement of the science, because we knew Proxima, which is the 3rd star in the Alpha Centauri star system. We have Alpha Centauri A and B and capital C, which is Proxima. And Proxima is farther away from the 2 other stars and orbits the 2 of them together. So it goes around the 2 stars in a bigger elliptical orbit. And Proxima has a planet of its own called Proxima B. And Proxima B is far enough away from Proxima Centauri that it'll probably be barren of life. Okay, it's going to be in a location where there's just no life capable at Proxima. All right, but that doesn't mean that that's all that's there. There might be more planets there that we don't know, and we'll have to look. So that's the exoplanet roundup for this week. The first part we talked about was the Complex Life in the Universe article in the Astrophysical Journal, talking about the tilt of the Earth's, or the tilt of the planetary axes out there as it relates to complex life. It actually makes complex life more possible. And then we talked about Alpha Centauri B having a planet of its own. Now, also tonight, we want to talk about alien life in the universe. Verse. I mean, you got to have an echo for that, right? And we've heard of the Fermi paradox. It's attributed to Enrico Fermi, and it's a paradox that basically, he was attributed to have said, well, where is everybody, or where are they, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the answer to the Fermi paradox is manyfold, frankly. Why, if they're out there, have we not heard from them? Why, if they're out there, have we not seen them? Well, this is something that we want to wonder about. We have to wonder about. We have been for many, many years. But there are some new answers to the paradox. And one of them is from another paper that was in the, I think it was Astrobiology. I'll get to that. But in that journal, it said that alien life might actually be taking a more strategic approach and taking its time to explore the universe. Now, in 1975, astrophysicist Michael Hart wrote a paper suggesting that 13.8 billion years is enough time to colonize the galaxy if there was a advanced civilization out there. So the fact that we haven't heard from them is the reason why they don't exist, is what the paper concluded, roughly. But this new study takes something else into account. It takes into account the fact that the stars move nearer and farther from each other in the galaxy. It takes into account that they go around the galaxy and they're always entering a new quote-unquote neighborhood. We have a solar neighborhood of stars near us, all right? Barnard's star, okay, and several others, Alpha Centauri, stars in the Big Dipper. So if that's the case, then maybe over time, maybe it might be millions of years, it would be necessarily, but over time, then we might move into a new quote-unquote neighborhood. And there might be a planet that's approaching, or a star really that's approaching, that would be in a better position for us to reach. And if a civilization is not in a hurry, then they could actually just basically use this strategic approach. So this paper takes into account the fact that the stars do this movement. They do move nearer and farther from each other as they orbit the galaxy. And it takes into account the strategy that an exploring civilization may use that makes the distant stars more reachable. So how does it actually work? How does something like that work? Well, it may be aliens with some level of technology that are really strategic about the search, and they may simply have not found us yet. Okay, that's why we may not see aliens, and we often think we've been found, and that may be true, considering that there's a lot of people on this planet that will say they've had otherworldly experiences. Many of those experiences may not be documented well, so we don't really have enough facts to know or to actually judge them. But consider, as a side note here, that this is a peer-reviewed paper in the Astronomical Journal as well. Okay? And it's a journal I often cite, and it presents and it represents actually a change in the peer level astronomical thinking at the academic level, just like the other paper we talked about earlier when we talked about complex life in the universe and the tilt of the planets. Yeah, so in other words, two papers now in very prestigious journals that are talking about the fact that Fermi and his compatriots might have been wrong, and that maybe we are. It wasn't that they're wrong. He said, "Where are they?" But but it means this level of at the level of academia, advanced extraterrestrial life has become, as I'll say it, a thing, and it never was before. Just want to make that clear. You would stop short in the past of saying that and of saying that the expectation is that there's advanced life in the universe. Now, though, at least it's on the table in peer-reviewed journals. So don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that. Now, the problem is this with this study, okay? And actually, the problem is with the Fermi paradox is it doesn't account for the star movements in the galaxy. And thus, the choices that Michael Hart had when he wrote the original paper in 1975 was, well, either no one leaves their planet or nobody is out there to leave any planets to come from, that come here. So the crux of that study is that advanced civilizations may just be waiting for a star to come closer before venturing out to it. So perhaps they haven't found us, or they found us millions of years ago and have been coming here ever since. Now, a traditional solution, traditional solutions to the Fermi paradox. First of all, in when we talk about, I say it was attributed to Enrico Fermi. What do I mean by that? The question of where they are was raised by Enrico Fermi. It was attributed to him, but he was actually in a conversation with Emil Konopinski, Edward Teller, famous name, and Herbert York. And he asked at one point, where is everybody? And when he did, everybody laughed. They just laughed because it was sort of a funny comment. Where is everybody? And however, each person at the table actually relays a slightly different account of what Fermi said. Some said he said, where is everybody? Or where are they? So each person actually recalled it a different way, but it was basically the same thing. But now the question comes down to, why might extraterrestrial life not be visible to us? I can think of many reasons, but consider these. There are civilizations that might have developed in their ocean, like we did, but perhaps they never left and advanced to wherever they advanced to, whatever level, in the water. So to them, their outer space might be the air above and the land, which to us is the equivalent of another planet or the moon. All right. Another possibility is that, and this is what gives ammo to the Fermi paradox of where are they? Maybe they're not out there. Well, maybe civilizations are unsustainable. Now, this is a big one. We know of at least several times in our history where we nearly eradicated ourselves because of nuclear accidents. And because atoms are present all throughout the universe, and because the power of the atom is all throughout the universe, there's no reason to expect that a sufficiently smart civilization wouldn't come up with a way to use the power of the atom for good or bad purposes. I should say I'm not happy about the fact that we are the only country, the United States of America, that actually used this in a war, nuclear weapons. It just was something that I could never stomach it, even as a kid. I felt that was the wrong move. It should have just been a bluff at most, and even that was horrible, But to do that to a civilization, to a population, it really showed to me just how uncultured we are, and how little we valued life as Americans. I am not happy with that. I just will never ever be happy with that. So that's sort of my little soapbox thing for that. I don't know.
You're getting into strategy and tactics, and they say the U.S.'s use of the nukes against Japan saved 1 million American military lives.
I know.
Rather than have to, but still, I know what you're saying. I mean, it's the mark of Cain. We have the mark of Cain upon us.
Yes, exactly. We are the ones who did it.
Yep.
Okay. And the answer is we wouldn't have, if we didn't use nukes, it would have been soldiers that would have ended up going over there to try and, maintain the conquest of Japan. But it wouldn't have been women and children and, ordinary people from the U.S. who would have been getting murdered. But it would have been innocent Japanese getting murdered. And that's another thing that, this is why this goes, and I wrote about this in the book. When we talk about wars, okay, I just don't see how we can leave the planet as a cohesive race of creatures without having figured out how to get along with each other, right? And that's something I think that's very important. We have to survive here. We could take a number of trajectories that could take us down a path where we will not survive as a planet. That's very important. Now, we have a break coming up, but when we come back, we're going to come back and talk about those. All right? But just to give you a little heads up on this, there's 4 different trajectories that any civilization may take. And of the 4, 3 of them lead to a Fermi paradox being validated. One of them, however, does not. One of them leads to the Fermi paradox being invalidated because the civilization survives and they make it beyond the danger eras. I mean, danger eras, nuclear power. Okay, we have fission nuclear power right now. We use the power of atoms that are actually react with each other just by being near each other, and we mitigate the reaction by putting inert rods down in between the other rods of fuel rods to make it stop. Well, if you run out of power, well, that just melts down, and we have a Fukushima, we have a Chernobyl, we have many different nuclear disasters. But if we can work with fusion, that's different. Fusion is like something like a reaction sitting on a mountaintop, on a very, very tippity top and a point. If it goes wrong just a little bit, it falls off the mountaintop because it's so finely balanced. And what happens? Does it melt down? No. Does it blow up? No. It just shuts off. Okay? So it's hard to maintain and keep going. Fission, on the other hand, is hard to stop. And that's why it happens. We'll talk about this and more, and we're going to talk about these trajectories for civilizations and where they go when they die when we get back here on Skytour Radio. This is Mark D'Antonio with Daryl Mason and Amanda Curran.
Nancy Vernon here with Ozark Mountain Publishing, coming to you from the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas. We are a publisher of New Age, metaphysical, spiritual, nonfiction books, as well as digital downloads, DVDs, and audiobooks. This is also the home of all of Dolores Cannon's titles. The company was founded in 1992 and has been bringing to you a varied selection of titles covering many different subjects. This year, we have added a new imprint to our company, Big Sandy Press. They will be publishing titles from the genres of historical fiction and nonfiction, paranormal fiction, and more. So be sure to visit our website, ozarkmt.com, and explore all the new and exciting authors and titles coming your way.
For more information about Ozark Mountain Publishing or their events, call 800-935-0045. That's 800-935-0045, or visit their website at ozarkmt.com. That's ozarkmt.com.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Hey everybody, Rachel Ray here. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face than cooking up a big meal for the whole family and lots of friends. But there's not enough room at my table for the 17 million kids in our country who struggle with hunger. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks collects surplus food to give hope to hungry kids. But they can't do it without your help. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The new KGRA YouTube channel is now live. Subscribe and be sure to hit the bell to stay up to date on the latest major announcements, alerts on trading topics, exclusive live streams, live video cast, and that's just the beginning. Be the first to know what's coming from the KGRA TV channel in real time. So keep it locked in to your contact for alternative talk radio on the internet. Your KGRAradio.com. You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio. Before the break, we were talking about where a civilization goes when it dies. Well, there are 4 potential trajectories that a civilization can take, and only one of them leads to sustainability that could take them further on down the path toward higher technology and the ability to leave their world. And what are they? Well, the first trajectory is a simple one. It's called the die-off. Now, there's a few little things you need to understand about this, and we'll make them clear as we move through here. Civilizations, they could make drastic changes to their environment, and these changes that the civilization might make as they progress will inevitably lead to rising temperatures. Yes, rising temperatures. All right. And if you think about how technology works, it all generates heat, not just like to heat your house or anything like that, but just in general. Okay, look at the urban sprawl. Look at the cities. If you take the temperatures in the cities, they're always hotter than the countryside. And a very advanced society will heat up their world. And that's a loaded statement there. A very advanced society will heat up their world. But it'll take time. But the bottom line is that this rising temperature situation will cause changes that will inevitably kill them off and cause them to die, because the planet is a very finely balanced ecosystem, and if you start pushing it in one direction, inordinately so, it's going to respond in a negative way. So here, with the die-off trajectory, the Fermi paradox would make sense. A civilization wouldn't survive. So therefore, it's sensible to say, okay, if many of these civilizations die off, then we don't have a reason to believe that there's advanced life out there. But the second trajectory that a civilization can take is something that's actually called the soft landing trajectory. And this is one where a civilization might manage to balance its growth and resource management and environmental usage. And the planet might heat up as the civilization advances, but they find a balance. They find a balance in a way that the population can be sustainable and the environment can be properly managed so that nothing happens that would kill off their civilization. So here, the Fermi paradox is invalidated. It can be non-paradoxical. And that's if they eventually find us or expose themselves to us. So that's a good one. And we'd like to be there. We'd like to be in that second trajectory. The third trajectory is one that I also write about in the book and in the populated universe. That's one that's called the Easter Island Enigma. Now, Easter Island is in eastern Polynesia. It had a thriving culture. The island name was Rapa Nui, which means Big Rapa. Okay, and you're going to ask me what a Rapa is? I don't know. Maybe island. And the indigenous people referred to it by that name, though there were many clans that made up the population. So you'll hear people say the Rapa Nui of Easter Island. They're really kind of generalizing, putting everybody in this Rapa Nui bucket. Well, the population on Rapa Nui rose faster than the resources could support, and the island started to fall, and the population started to have problems. Battles, wars broke out between factions and different groups, clans, and as the resources dwindled from over-harvesting the wood that was on the island, the situation just grew more dire. Not to mention that there was an introduction of one animal, a Polynesian rat, which might have come from a neighboring Polynesian island, because this was the easternmost island. It was a migrating animal, basically. And when you're on an island where you're living without a lot of biodiversity, that can have a lot of negative effects. On an Earth scale, we don't have that issue because we're all carbon-based and we're very diverse. But Rapa Nui wasn't. It had a resource. It had one small pool of animals. And the Polynesian rat came in and upset the entire apple cart. Further, the population was already climbing very high. So over time, what we now call Easter Island fell. And it wasn't until visitation by the Europeans that the death knell was sounded, because that's when disease took a toll on the remaining people there. And in supplication to the gods, they made these big statues that sit on pedestals looking out over the vast ocean. These statues are the Moai, and the Moai are looking out with these stares into the ocean as if asking the gods to save them. And all that's left of the Rapa Nui are the statues. There is an indigenous culture there to this day. Most of them went to Chile, which is because Easter Island is a territory of Chile. But the island is now a place you go as a tourist. There is no actual established civilization anymore on Rapa Nui. So if you extend that and say Easter Island is to the Pacific as Earth is to the cosmos, and if we depleted our resources, well, then you see we could find ourselves on the Easter Island trajectory as well. And that's something that we just don't want to do, folks, right? We know that. And I think that that's something that is really important to consider, because on that island, the people were doing fine as the population rose, as the rat came in, as the Europeans arrived. The island was visited by new germs and new viruses, and that is another thing that took the toll, right? So once the resources, in this case the forests primarily, were depleted, the population collapsed. Now, as a planetary species, if that was the Earth, we'd be done. We would be thrust into Stone Age. We would be moved into trying to just save ourselves and not think of anybody else, not think as a country, not think as a world, but just think as individuals trying to get another meal to live till tomorrow. That's something that would really not settle well with most people, okay? Now, in this case, the Easter Island enigma here, the Fermi paradox is also validated, all right? This would lead to a culture dying and thus not being able to leave their world and make contact with anybody else. So if you're interested in Easter Island, you can pick up Jared Diamond's book called Collapse. He wrote about it extensively. It's a great book. I have it. Adam Frank also wrote about it in a paper to the Astrobiology Journal. And it was very well written. And so anyone could also pick up Populated Universe and see it there too in my book. But that's, as I said, it's not new. So that said, you have to meter your voracious appetites with your usage of the resources and look long term. Now, let's say you had some foresight and you thought, okay, we've got to really try to maintain our resources. Let's get off of this fossil fuel thing here, because that's burning dead things and they're going to run out someday. And that brings you to the fourth trajectory, and that's something called the collapse with foresight. So collapse, and you're heading toward that, but you're trying to mitigate it. You're trying to keep it from happening. There are civilizations in the galaxy that may realize that they're using resources too quickly. They might see their time is limited, and they might try to mitigate the problem, but they might also find that the measures they take are too late. It's really the most frightening one, because you see it coming and you can't really do anything about it. So the civilization collapses. In that case, the Fermi paradox is validated once again. So of the four trajectories, only one allows for the Fermi paradox to be rendered a non-starter, and that's the trajectory 2, the soft landing, where the civilization learns to manage its resources while growing. So in general, civilizations are always on some form of precipice. They will suffer resource mismanagement, internal conflicts. They will be flirting with nuclear power, maybe abusing it, as we did. and have and still do. And then they might also have, elimination of enemies with high prejudice. Wars, right, against someone because they look different from us, or because they smell different, or because they talk funny. I don't know. To them we talk funny. It just goes on and on. But there's one more thing too that civilizations face, and that's something we're going to talk about shortly. All right. But let me add one more possibility about the Fermi paradox that might help explain why we can still have a populated universe but still not see anybody out there. This hypothesis, and maybe some of you out there listening have said it in your minds, it's called the zoo hypothesis. Now, why would Earth be a zoo? Well, we're certainly contained. We don't get off much, on the planet. We don't really get to leave too often. But it's same as like a nature preserve. Now in Africa, Selous Game Reserve is the largest game reserve in all of Africa. Most people have heard of the Serengeti National Park, but they haven't heard of this one. Well, there are creatures there that don't know what a fence is because they've never seen one in their life. They don't know they're being contained and preserved, but they are. So maybe that could be what's happening here. And we also know that we don't just protect animals on this planet. As humans, we also protect other indigenous peoples. I don't know if you knew this, but there's some Amazon tribes that it's absolutely forbidden to make contact with, because we could not only give them disease, think Easter Island here, okay, but we could also poison them technologically and or emotionally, culturally, and that's something we can't allow. We have to allow them to evolve along a normal path. We can't interfere. Now it sounds like the Prime Directive from Star Trek, doesn't it? It makes sense. And I know Daryl likes Star Trek. He quotes some Star Trek things quite often, so I'm sure he gets this. But we find that there's actually UN charters that forbid contact with some of these tribes, and it's well understood that you should not go there. Now, some outsiders make it, and it's to the detriment of one or the other, the people or the outsider. Now, the question I ask is that what's happening here? It could be that there's a lot of civilizations out there who didn't get the zoo notice about Earth and come anyway. Or maybe the visitors are the zookeepers if the zoo hypothesis is in place. And why would they be deliberately avoiding us? What's the point? Well, deliberately avoiding us could provide a possible answer to the Fermi paradox. Okay, they are around, but maybe they stay out of sight. And the reasons they might do this, as I alluded to some of these before, they want to allow the natural development of the beings on this planet. They want to see the natural evolution of the beings on this planet. Our time scales might not be their time scales. We work 8 hours a day, and we go home, and we have weekends off. Okay, maybe some of us don't. I don't. I think I've worked every weekend in my life, but the point being that our time frames are not theirs. Perhaps to us, a year is a reasonable amount of time. To them, a year might not be very much time at all, considering they're interstellar. Maybe they experience time on a grander scale than we do. So it's possible they can just observe and make findings that we could never possibly understand, because it takes eons for the findings to become clear. The other reason that they might stay out of sight is they might not want to influence the planet's development, especially if they know we have worldwide communication capability. Boy, that would be a problem. Wars could ignite over which country the visitors, quote unquote, decide to contact. And here's the other thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that aliens seeded life here. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Now, that's kind of relates to panspermia, but not exactly. Panspermia is more related to the accidental arrival of organic material that started life on this planet from another planet that had life on it. It doesn't mean a rocket ship landing. It means an asteroid that brought some type of organic material here. And that, I think that would be pretty cool. And that's pretty interesting. And I don't actually deny the possibility that that could have happened in some form. The universe is a big place, has time on its side. Now, as far as the reasons why they might stay out of sight, there's some problems with that approach. In a populated universe, all the alien parties would have to agree to let development happen here naturally. They'd all have to be in on it. It just takes one civilization to come down, and this notion of evolving on our own is right out the cosmic window. But their desire to keep Earth a zoo would be lost. So the question is now, is this happening now? Well, we have stories that have gone for centuries of different kinds of visitors. In Australia, we have the Wandjina myth, okay? The Kimberley region of Australia several thousand years ago. The Wandjina peoples, which have these black, dark eyes and little tiny mouths, okay, some without mouths. They're rumored to come from the sky, live in the water, and have full mastery of the water. The myth generates from a theoretical, mythical encounter between two boys, Aboriginal boys, who tortured an owl, O-W-L, an owl, to death. And in response, the Wandjina sent a tsunami to wipe out the Aboriginal village. Now, was this myth founded in fact? Or was it actually just a myth surrounding a need to explain a millennia-old tsunami? Good question. We'll never know. But listen on, because there's more that relates to this. Now, the Mayan and Aztec gods, okay, Eric von Daniken would like you to believe they were everywhere and were all spacecraft. But we need to be careful. There is a famous sarcophagus lid, Pakal's sarcophagus lid, which shows what Daniken claims is a rocket that he's piloting. Now, to archaeologists, however, it means something totally different. And so we can't dispel and deny that maybe the archaeologist's impression is correct. They think that this sarcophagus lid actually shows Pakal in his passage to the underworld. Now, how do we know this is true? Well, I guess based on the understandings of culture at the time, people that recreate and back engineer cultural belief systems, and maybe they can figure that out. I tend to side with the archaeologists, but my mind is open to other possibilities. Now, in India, there's drawings that depict what looks like a saucer-shaped craft shooting a beam out toward the ground. Now, this could just be a cloud with crepuscular rays, the angels singing clouds that people always say. But maybe it's something more. In Italy, there are helmeted warriors that are fighting in a cave drawing, and this is the Val Camonica warrior painting that some of you know. Now, it could just be a fancy headdress, but it looks like they have some kind of round helmets on. But are they helmets? There's another possibility. And, for instance, those could be halos, as depicted, in so many artistic renderings. Renaissance paintings of deities show strange objects too. In the painting of Madonna and Child with the infant Saint John, that's what the actual painting's called. It was circa 1500s, likely by the artist Filippo Lippi, and it's famous because it seems to have a UFO that's over the Madonna's head and to the right of her, in the background. It's an elongated ellipsoidal object, emanating light. Okay, has rays sticking out. And down in the ground, there's a man and a dog, and they're both looking at it. Now, we know it was intentional. It was added by Lippi. But what was that? Now, scholars say it could be a depiction of an angel. But depictions of angels that had no human form, no anthropomorphic details, were really rare. And this angel, quote unquote, has no features at all. You see no wings, no cherub face, no trumpets. It's just the object emanating rays. So what does it mean? Does it mean it was a UFO? Does it mean it was something seen and then put into a painting? Don't know. Lost the history. So many paintings at the time, though, they show deities with light around their heads. The halo that I mentioned before. And this has been kind of one of my hot buttons over the past. I actually did a talk in Denver about halos, because the halo was not restricted to the Renaissance paintings. It's mentioned, in other literature, and it's also seen in the Wandjina paintings from thousands of years before the Renaissance. Okay, this is around the heads of the Wandjina beings is this very colorful halo. In all the depictions of the Wandjina, they have this halo around their heads. All right. Now, in the Madonna and Child painting I mentioned earlier, the child has a halo around his head. Not the same as the Wandjina. It's different. Right. But I've said this before. Halos are everywhere in the depictions that people have produced over the many, many hundreds of and thousands of years. They're very much the same. There's a connection. The Aborigines 5,000 years ago had no contact with the Europeans. All right. The first Europeans didn't arrive until the mid-1700s, and they established Australia as a penal colony. But Aboriginal cave art with Wandjina with halos had already been in existence for thousands of years prior to that. So what's interesting about all this is it makes us wonder, have advanced beings reached us? Well, you got to be the judge. If we're a zoo, it's clear why they haven't, basically exposed themselves to us. But perhaps some of them have snuck off into the zoo in the off hour, so to speak. And maybe that's what people experience with abductions. Now, there's one thing too. And I want to say this before the break. I have a final thought on the ultimate disposition of a civilization. Climate change could be a big decider. In all four of the trajectories, I mentioned that temperature is the most important factor. And it's true. As a civilization's tech level rises, so too does the environmental impact. They go hand in hand. If you look at our history, it can't be avoided. As cultures advance, all right, their environmental impact increases, and the heat output from the civilization increases. And waste heat, the heat that can't be used to make energy, which is what it's all about, is part of every single technological process. Waste heat is also lost energy. There should be no waste. But we do. We have waste. We have waste, and it can't be avoided at this point. And this waste heat adds to the higher temperatures of the tech energy, of the tech. So energy providers are people like coal-fired plants, nuclear plants, natural gas and oil wells. And consumers of electricity from fossil fuels and electricity, generation are things like vehicles and industrial processes, waste incinerators, factories, and varying amounts of energy that go into an energy generation process, or consumers of energy. Okay, that's lost as waste heat, and that number, the amount of waste heat that's actually lost, is about 66%. 66% is the average, and 34% is actually used efficiently. Now, that's a terrible inefficiency, if you ask me. So I think that we're looking at a possibility that we have a long way to go, So people say, well, solar panels are a good way to go. It's green. We can actually generate our own energy. That's right. There's a lot of houses in my neighborhood that have solar panels on the roof, and the people are very proud of them, and they should be. They're helping the environment. However, at only 17% efficiency, meaning only 17% of the sunlight that strikes those panels gets converted to electricity, it's really a tremendously inefficient system so far. The most efficient panels are only about 23%. More than a quarter almost a quarter of the energy is used, and 75% or more is actually lost to the waste. So the processes that generate our energy from start to finish will generate higher and higher levels of waste heat. And the ability of a civilization to manage that waste heat quotient here, okay, will determine if it lives or dies. Because waste heat rising will affect the climate. Now, for those of you thinking global warming, believe it or not, that's not where this is going, because global warming really isn't what's happening. If you look at the science, which is not in, by the way, they always say, oh, the science is in. No, it actually isn't. And you can talk to a lot of people, mostly professors of climatology, who know what's going on. And you will see that most of the science was affected by political decisions. And so the responses that were given to the United Nations and to people that had paid them to do the studies fall in line with what they want to see. I hate to say it that way, but there's actually a whole thing out there called ClimateGate. And some of it is true, some of it's been disproven. But the bottom line is, whenever you mix politics with the efforts to advance a civilization, and of course money, only bad things seem to happen. Only bad things seem to happen. And we'll talk more about good things that seem to happen when we get back in just a few seconds right after this break. And don't forget, when we come back, the phone lines will be open. So we'll see you in just a few minutes here on SkyTour Radio with me, Daryl, and Amanda.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
KGRA Radio is your interactive alternative talk media. Sponsored by the Paranormal Radio app. The KGRA rolls out its new high-definition call-in phone lines. 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA-LIVE. The Paranormal Radio app hotline gives our listeners the ability to call in and interact with your favorite host. Post questions for the guest and win KGRA swag like t-shirts, books, DVDs, conference tickets, and more. Your interactive alternative talk media. KGRARadio.com. We are the contact for alternative research topics. The Planet, KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky to Radio. This is Mark D'Antonio. We have Daryl Mason here and Amanda Curran. We're still with you, believe it or not, And it's a good night so far, and we have opened the phone lines. So if you want to give us a call, you can certainly do that. The number is 855-472-5483. Again, 855-472-5483. That is 85-KGRA Live for those that like to do it that way. So going back...
Stop just a second. Can you say something for me, please?
Yeah.
Or do something for me? Don't say Daryl and Amanda. Say Amanda and Daryl, please.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
Well, it was just sort of the way it rolled off the tongue. Amanda's been the co-host of Sky to Radio since the inception.
Coming up on 2 years, actually.
Yeah, and so I say Daryl and Amanda because Daryl is the one who's joined us the most recently. And so out of respect to Daryl, I give him the first dibs, and then Amanda knows.
Thank you. Ladies first, though.
Well, of course, I understand that. But I'm just nice to our man Daryl, who's like probably one of the finest astronomers I know.
Oh.
That's all. But I agree with it. I can do that for you because you're being kind to Amanda, And if you folks haven't figured out, we kind of really, we love what we do, and we actually like each other. At least on the radio, I think Daryl's called me some bad names off the radio, hasn't he? No, I don't think so. I'm kidding. But
be nice.
I know. Here I am. I'm the guy that actually kind of yelled at him about not having taken his telescope out last week. But the fact of the matter is, these things are heavy. They aren't easy to move around as much. So I could have spoken out of turn, and I regret it. I'm sorry.
Just don't do it again.
Okay, Daryl. So the one thing that I wanted to bring up here is that I do have a theory, and I will get to our callers here soon. But I do want to mention, there is it's really nothing new. We mentioned that aliens could have arrived millions of years ago on the planet. They could have left small groups to watch and study us. But one thing I don't believe is that they're here to protect us from destroying ourselves. I think they're just passive observers, okay? And I think they could have arrived any time in our evolution. And I don't think they're here to kill us because they could have done that at any time in our evolution. Now, are aliens responsible for life on this planet? I don't believe that to be true. People say, well, they seeded the planet. We came from somewhere else. Well, the problem I have with that is if you look at the human, we have traits that give away the fact that we actually did evolve here. One of them is our dependence on sodium. We started life in the ocean, and we evolved out of the ocean over millions of years. And when we did that, we took a little bit of that salt water with us. Why the water is salty is a topic for a different show, but it is salty. The sodium atom does, combine with chlorine in the ocean and give sodium chloride, NaCl, in the periodic table. And this particular dependence is something that we retain within our skin. That's why we're salty. Okay, so that said, there's another one that's even more important, and that is DNA. DNA is something that's similar to, in humans, is something that's similar to many of the other animals on our planet. And some of these might surprise you. The first ones won't. Our DNA is close to the great apes, okay? We know that. Now, our DNA is 98.8% of bonobos and chimpanzees, all right? So we share 98.8% of our DNA with chimpanzees. Lowland mountain gorillas are at 98.4% shared DNA, okay? Monkeys are only 93% shared DNA with humans. And here's something you probably didn't expect, and this is the thing that makes people scratch their heads when I mention it. Mice have 90% shared DNA with humans. Did you know that? What do you think of that, Amanda? Isn't that kind of weird?
I heard we shared like 90% with bananas, so nothing surprises me anymore.
Okay.
Something like that, a really high percentage.
Yeah.
Bananas.
Well, the other thing too is, it makes sense, okay? When you hear that mice share 90% of our DNA, now you can see that's actually part of the reason that mice are used in labs for medical studies, because that shared DNA is something that gives researchers something to grasp onto when they're trying to develop drugs to cure different diseases and so forth.
I'm still against animal testing.
And so am I. I have a story that I can't say on the air. When I worked in a pharmaceutical company as a consultant, things I saw, I had to leave, and I did. Yeah, I couldn't stand it. And here's another one. You ready for this? Man's best friend, or human's best friend, dogs, and I know cats. Don't worry, Amanda, I know cats. Okay, but dogs in particular have 84% shared DNA with humans. And unfortunately, again, that's why they're also often used in these morally contemptuous lab studies. And finally, and one last little surprise I want to share with you. Chickens share 65% of our DNA. Chickens. All right. Now, that similarity is not as close as apes, but guess what? It is actually important because chickens make proteins such as interferon, and that's a protein that helps with human immunity studies and so forth. So I think, to me, the DNA speaks volumes. We're all linked together, and I think that the people that want to believe that aliens seeded life here, they'd have to say, or they'd have to go back and say, well, they had to put all the life here. And all of it was based on DNA. All of it came from the aliens or only us. See, they want to say, they can't say it's just us, because it doesn't work. You have to have had the aliens seed life of every kind on this planet. And that's the thing that seems really very unlikely. Thoughts on that, Daryl? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Maybe this is why chicken tastes so good.
Yeah.
Pardon me, Amanda. Maybe the aliens are here for the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Who knows?
Okay. It's possible. It's possible. But so to me, the suggestion officially that we were seeded, my opinion, Mark's opinion, not I can't speak for Daryl and Amanda. They have their own opinions, of course. But my opinion is that the notion that we were seeded, SEEDED, seeded here by an alien civilization is unsupported by the science. But we could have been visited at any point during our evolution. Don't forget. Stephen Hawking famously said we should probably keep a low profile and not announce ourselves to the alien cultures out there. Not necessarily a bad thing. But I think that any culture sufficiently advanced to go interplanetary, interstellar, is a culture that has gone past its warring nature, if it ever had it. It may have developed very differently. But that said, if you want to hide, you should have told our planet, more than 2.5 billion years ago, because that's when the oxygen built up in our planet's atmosphere because of the little creatures called cyanobacteria, life forms. And when the oxygen signature grew to proportions that could be noticeable, that oxygen signature has been going out 2.7 billion light years into the universe in all directions. If you were looking for planets that had oxygen in their atmospheres because you're a carbon-based being that uses oxygen to make energy, then this would be a really big spike on your meter and say, let's go there. So this is why I say that we could have been visited millions of years ago or even earlier by civilizations. The oxygen signature in our atmosphere is what would have done it. See? So that's
what if aliens landed and the doors opened up and giant chickens came out?
Oof. Quickly put a gigantic cardboard house in front of the Kentucky Fried Chickens so that they wouldn't know that there was chicken being served there.
we'd be in big trouble. I'm sorry. Carry on.
No, it's actually quite good. I like that. Now I just now let's go to the phones. What do you say to that? Should we go to the phones?
Let's.
Okay. Here's the first call. Let's let me bring him on the air. Hello, Malcolm. This is Mark, Daryl, and I'm sorry, Mark, Amanda, and Daryl. Got to say it right.
Thank you.
You're on the air. Go ahead. Malcolm, you still there?
Hello?
Yeah, there you are.
Yes, I am here. Hi, this is Malcolm from Port Charlotte, Florida. How are you this evening?
Awesome. Thank you so much for the call. How's it going down there in Florida?
Well, it's gotten a little cold down here. I think it might get down as low as 44 tonight. That's Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
All
guess
of
for
us
Florida,
are
that's
snuggling
chilly.
up, Yeah, it's terrible, man. I mean, sometimes you can see your breath. Anyway, I wanted to say it's very refreshing to hear this program on KGRA because there is a lot of critical thinking expressed on this program, and there is a distinct lack of critical thinking on a lot of the stuff they run on this channel.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment for our show.
Yes, it is a compliment. It's intended as a compliment. What I wanted to say is I hear both from the scientific and the paranormal community, and there is an overlap there, by the way, the same complaint, where is everybody? As Jimmy Church was saying on his show last week, I don't want to die before I find out whether we're alone in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I submit to you, we're not alone on this planet. I'm talking about the mines and the waters, the dolphins and the whales, basically the toothed whales.
Okay.
There are mines out there that are surprisingly comparable to ours. And I started thinking about this. By the way, I know this from personal experience. And one of the ways in which we're both similar is that we can both project force at a distance. Most animals can't do this. But it forces you to objectify things. And, when you pick up a rock for throwing, you weigh it. You may not realize it, but you weigh it. And then you throw it.
Well, you have to judge how far you can throw it.
Right. Okay, yeah. Well, that's projecting. That's the most primitive form of projecting force at a distance for humans. Dolphins do this all the time naturally with their echolocation.
Yes.
So I think we have both developed comparable mental processes to help us with this, projecting force at a distance and having to objectify other objects that are not.
That's valid. I think that there's validation here when you look at the animal kingdom, the marine kingdom especially. One other animal in the ocean that I think...
Don't bring up octopi.
Yeah, I'm about to talk about octopi. Yeah, exactly. The octopus is probably the most intelligent creature in the ocean, and it has the ability to reason.
It's the most intelligent invertebrate in the ocean. I'll give you that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know dolphins are very smart too. We've taught dolphins to do all kinds of things, some not so good. But
have you ever let a dolphin teach you what it wanted to do?
I've never had the opportunity to swim with a dolphin. It's actually kind of on the bucket list.
People don't allow that very much. It's all, you will do what I want you to do. I hold the fish bucket. So, I've got control of the situation. Dolphin says, sure, okay. I'll, repress my nature, and you do whatever you want. You do whatever you want.
Go ahead. Just do what you want, man. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you let the dolphin determine the agenda, you see something very, very different.
Well, tell me what you saw. You've done it?
Yes.
All right, let me hear what you hear what you saw when you let the dolphin set the agenda for your meeting.
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
Well, when you let the dolphin set the agenda for your meeting, tell me what happened.
Well, I was given access to a small amusement park on the west coast of Florida. It's no longer there now. It's called Florida Land. And by the way, there's a documentary on YouTube you can see about this called Dolphin Land. And I went there to take pictures of the dolphins for a planned book. You know, I knew the writer and everything. She introduced me to the place, in fact. And what I found there was that one of the dolphins spent an awful lot of time and an awful lot of energy trying to court me.
Okay.
Well,
but you were letting him or her.
Her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I was trying to train it to do other things. I tried to train it to imitate a sound I was making. I was telling it its name. Its name was Dolly, and I was asking it to repeat Dolly. And within a few minutes, it had me repeating her. And I ended up repeating a sound that she had made about 5 minutes earlier at the beginning of our experience.
Okay.
When I did that, she went nuts. She went splashing all around the pen, throwing water in every direction. You know, it was like somebody giving a dog extra praise and effort when you finally got it to master, the simplest trick.
Yeah.
That's the way I felt. What can I say?
Well, Malcolm, that's excellent. And you bring up a really important point. And I have to move on to other callers, but I just want to mention to you the point you made is very important for the following reason. We tend to think that we're of course, a species on the planet that controls the planet. And it does make us shut down listening to the animals, paying attention to what the animals may need. We think we are the stewards of all the animals on this planet. If you ask the most intelligent invertebrate in the ocean, as we talked about the octopus, if you're asking an octopus what he thought, he would probably change to the color of a rock and just say, forget it, I'm out of here. Okay, I'm not even going to go down that path because, obviously they don't. But they, octopi are extremely smart, and I have watched tests with octopi where they actually can watch another octopus work his way out of a maze. And that's watching from a secondary tank attached to them, and they can't go through the tank themselves. And that means that, and then you see the second octopus allowed into the tank, and he goes right out the path the other one went because he memorized the path from watching. That processing that was going on there is almost, it is frightening, because we don't understand what they're really thinking. But we do know that they watched and they learned. So you have to wonder, like, what kind of creature is the octopus really? I know that I've heard people say, "Oh, the octopus is an object from that's been planted here by aliens." I've heard that too. I would have to say, okay, it's a very intelligent invertebrate in the ocean. I agree. And I also think it's a marvelous creature. If I could have one as a pet, I think I would, and then I'd probably become its pet when it.
Yes, that's what I was going to suggest would happen.
But I just think that's hilarious. I mean, we laugh about that thing, but you bring up points that really hit home for the people that.
In closing, you don't know how helpless you are in the water until you get in the water with a dolphin.
Oh yeah, that's for true. I've seen that actually. I've actually heard stories too where dolphins, and of course, people they jump to some conclusions. But I know that there were people in shark attacks that were rescued by dolphins, and I know that dolphins. You too?
I interviewed one such.
Okay. Yeah. And I also know that before the Banda Aceh disaster, the tsunami that claimed so many lives, there was an island there in the strait, and the people of the island watched the dolphins being very agitated, and these dolphins ended up basically passing a message that was sent, it was brought down through the cultures in the past. They recognized this behavior of the dolphins as meaning get to high ground. And there were people that actually had their lives saved by the way the dolphins were acting in the harbor, in the strait. So a lot of cool stuff. I really appreciate your call, Malcolm. Thank you for the kind words about the show. I hope you continue to listen.
I do.
But it was great. So you have a good night, and call again. All right.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Thank you. Good night.
May I say something there?
Yeah,
real
please.
quick. Back in the 70s, the people, old timers might remember the Whole Earth catalog. The publishers of the Whole Earth catalog put out a series of books called the Coevolution Quarterly. And it's a fascinating series of books. One issue was about what is human, or what is a human.
Yeah.
And it might be looked at as almost provincial nowadays, but they, as part of the book, they looked at other animals like, could we call them human? And the consensus in this book was that dolphins could be considered human.
Wow. You know what? I find that interesting, because there's a lot of creatures that may have more intelligence than we allow ourselves to realize.
This is true.
Yeah. Hey, let's get to another call, shall we?
Yes.
All righty. Okay. Hey there, caller. You're on the air. Who's this, and where are you from? And, how much do you make a year, and what kind of car do you drive, and so forth, and how much of that you're going to give to us?
Hi, Mark and Amanda and Daryl. Happy New Year to
Ronald.
everyone.
We knew it was Ronald, folks. That's why we said it that way.
Yeah, just really quick, I wanted to ask you a question about the light years of travel, how they might do it, and then how in the heck do they fly? And I know I've talked to two different people I have interviewed personally, and they've been abducted by aliens. What do you do with that?
So
there you go.
Okay. So your first question was, how do they get here?
Yeah, how many, they travel light years away from wherever they came from.
Potentially, yeah.
Across, many miles of space,
Yeah,
if
light
we
years
want
of
to believe
space.
that.
Miles don't even make sense, when you talk about space.
And then,
so
and then
the bottom line is,
how do they fly?
Well, the bottom line is that there's a number of technologies on our distant astrophysical horizon that might actually serve us well in that regard. I know we only have a couple minutes left, Ronald, but I'll try to get to this as best I can. There is a way to warp space, and this is called the warp drive, actually, and named for Miguel Alcubierre. And it allows us, if perfected, it will allow us, and it's being researched by NASA right now, actually, it will allow us to reach, say, Alpha Centauri, not in the 12,000 years it might take us conventionally like now, but in about 5 days to 2 weeks if you make it a leisurely run. Even that is way too slow if you're going to talk about going to nearby stars, because the next nearest star system is about 6 light years away. So that might take, say, 3 weeks to get to. And if that's the case, well, now you're talking about, that's only the nearest star to us, second nearest star. Well, what about the star that's 30 light years away? Well, now it's going to take 10 times as long, say, to get to that one. And now we're talking about, a long, long time. So even that Alcubierre drive doesn't work. But buried within string theory, there are other possibilities. And that we'll have to share for another show. But that would allow us to actually punch in and punch out, possibly, in our universe. And basically, I believe that if there are, and I believe there are, advanced civilizations in the universe, then they are probably the best cartographers. Those are map makers, the best cartographers in the entire universe. Because these cartographers would map all the jump points, these punch out and punch in locations, so they could get many places in the universe in just a short time. What's a short time? I don't know. We don't have the technology yet. It could be anything from minutes to a couple of days to years. And again, if their time scales aren't like ours, it could be a very different way in which they experience time. That said, I want to give Amanda and Daryl any chances to make a final comment before we go for tonight. Amanda, do you have anything you want to add?
The show gave us a lot to think about.
All right, Daryl, what do you got to say? Anything at all?
The punching out thing you talked about sounds like Stargate to me.
Well, yes, it did, and the warp engines of Star Trek. But it turns out that the warp engines of Star Trek ended up becoming a potentially real thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
so
sure.
Science does often, reality sometimes imitates art, and
yeah.
So
I think a simple answer to Ronald's question would be there are two ways. There are slow ways and there are fast ways.
Yeah.
The slow ways, they call them generation ships, that's a sci-fi theme. The fast way is like the warp drive. We haven't figured that one out yet.
That's true.
Thank you.
That's true. Well, folks, I hate to say it, but we're all out of time. Our producer was about to send frantic messages saying, "Hey, you guys, you gotta stop talking now."
Thank you for the call. All right.
Ronald, thank you for calling. We'll talk to you again. All right.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, Ronald. Well, folks, you've done it again. You've just experienced 2 more hours of Sky Tour Radio here on KGRARadio.com. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening, and don't forget, when you're walking around outside, not in your cars, as Amanda will tell you, I'm sure, you keep looking up, okay?
Except while you're driving.
That's right.